The views and opinions expressed on More Peace, Please are those of the host and her guest. The information presented is strictly for general information purposes
But I
only.
am blessed and lucky enough in whereby what I do, what I share my career as a yoga teacher means that I am organically creating community. And I'm lucky in that, maybe some of the things that people would see as a drawback, maybe being a Black woman, in a different kind of body, different kind of shape, something that people might see as a drawback in that industry has actually been such a pull.
Welcome to More Peace, Please, because sometimes we just have to ask for more peace. Please. On this podcast, my guests and I will discuss different ways to access peace while also acknowledging how difficult peace can be to obtain and maintain. I am your host, Dominique Davis, also known as Brown and Bindi, trauma-informed yoga teacher and practitioner, weekend musician, and content creator. Welcome to my little corner of the internet. We're all friends here, so kick off your shoes, relax your feet, and let's just see if we can ask for a little more peace. Please. Hi, welcome back to another episode of More Peace, Please. I am your host, Dominique Davis, also known as Brown and Bindi, and I'm really glad that you decided to check out the podcast today. I just got back from my mini vacation. I went to go celebrate my little sister's birthday with her and some of her friends out in Phoenix, Arizona. I gotta say, that state is absolutely beautiful. I could honestly talk about it forever. Now, this isn't a travel vlog, but or a travel vlog, this isn't a travel podcast, but if you will indulge me for a moment, the scenery is so different from what I'm used to here in North Carolina. It's very, mountainous and a lot of desert. It almost reminded me of The Sims 3. I can't remember if the neighborhood was called Strange Town or Strangeville. If you know, let me know in the comments, but I kept getting pulled back to when I was a teenager in my room for far too long playing The Sims 3. But yeah, it's a lot of desert, it's a lot of hills and valleys, and it was so different from anything I was used to, and it was absolutely beautiful. I really vibed with the weather. It was very hot, but it wasn't sticky. It wasn't super humid, at least during my time there. I am Kenyan, so I feel like my DNA was like, yes, this is it. This is what I want. But, it was great. It was really, really great. It was hot, but it was good. The downtown area of Phoenix, Arizona, I believe, much like Charlotte, I believe they called their downtown uptown because when we were downtown, I saw a couple buildings that said uptown on them, but feel free to correct me if I am wrong. But the architecture downtown was gorgeous. There was one building called the Renaissance, and my Uber driver was telling me about it. He was like, yeah, they have a lot of Comic Cons here. And I was like, well, boo, you are speaking my language. I've never cosplayed, but, big anime fan. So he was telling me that they do a lot of Comic Cons there, and the building, if you know what I'm talking about, like the windows are very oval shape, and I've just never seen anything like it. I definitely recommend looking it up if you've never seen it before, but if you have that weird thing where like you have a phobia of holes, don't look it up because it will definitely trigger that. The food, my God, the food. We went to Blue Water Grill, and that was amazing. We went to Brunch Snob, which I've wanted to go to for a little while, and that lived up to all of the expectation and all of the hype. We also went to Sugar Jam in Scottsdale, and it was an hour and a half wait, but I think it was Saturday. I think we went on Saturday, so that's to be expected. But it was so much fun. It was the most fun I've ever had waiting for a table. The music was amazing. The atmosphere, the people were amazing. I feel like the whole room was family. The way that everyone just got along and would dance and fellowship and hang out with each other. Highly, highly, highly recommend Sugar Jam in Scottsdale if you've never been.
it was also great. And then finally the shopping. Oh my goodness. I was naughty. I was a naughty girl. We went shopping at Fashion Square, I believe it was called. Fashion Square Mall, and that was just great. Not for my wallet, not for my budget, but for my soul. It was really good. Now, all of these different experiences wouldn't have meant a thing if it weren't for the people I was with. I was with such a fun group of women, and I have to really say that it's a reflection of my little sister because she brought us together. And I am so proud of the woman that she's becoming, but I'm also really proud of the people she chooses to spend her time with. I mean, to go away for 5 days and to have no drama, no drama at all, no weird vibes, no passive aggression, like just love and fun. And don't get me wrong, we did have a couple of times where we had deeper conversations. We were not just, talking about surface level icebreaker small talk type things. We were, as my friend would say, we were having dissertations every day, it felt like. And we didn't all agree on everything, but there was space for everyone to be an individual. And I think that is so, that's just so special. Even towards the end of the vacation, we were all ready to go home. 5 days is a little bit of time to be away from your home, but we weren't tired of each other. My little sister's best friend I had met, and towards the end of the trip, I felt like I wanted more time with her. I wanted to get to know her even better. Again, so unique, so rare to be out here with women for 5 days and to feel like at the end of the trip, I'm not done exploring your personalities. Like that's just so beautiful. And I don't want to say women, I should just say people. A lot of times people don't come into situations so open and chill. It was just really, really great. And it's all a reflection of my little sister. In all honesty, this trip made me reflect on my relationship, my understanding of community, and how that understanding has expanded and evolved. What I look for when it comes to friends and community has completely shifted and changed from the beliefs and the expectations that I held when I was in my 20s. This is going to sound so shallow, but I'm just going to be real. When I was in my 20s, I gravitated towards people based on aesthetic. It was a subconscious search for acceptance and social validation. I looked for people who would align with my aspirations, my social aspirations. And even though I feel like this is a very surface level, shallow thing for me to admit, I also don't feel like I am rare in that. I think a lot of us search for friendships out of a place of survival in our 20s, not necessarily becoming friends with people based on character, based on moral foundation, based on compatibility, but becoming friends based on socioeconomically, what can you do for me? And looking back, it's insane how I didn't recognize why I was always falling out with people. I have something in common with all of my friends now. So I can't say that, that's different. All of my friends, there's at least one or two things that we can bond over and really say that we both enjoy. But compared to when I was in my 20s, when I was younger, I felt like I was looking for people who were reflections of myself. I wanted to see myself so much in the people that I was looking to be friends with, as far as like makeup, fashion sense, hobbies, where we lived, like all of they had to check all these boxes so that I could be comfortable, versus now after, 10 years of maturing, I don't need that validation from my friends. I truly, it's just vibes. Like if I can have a good conversation with you And if we can align morally, because my little sister says it all the time, it is the principle. It is the principle. So if we can have a good conversation and if we can align morally, and there is a parallel in our lives where we are both headed in specific directions. They don't have to be the same directions, but just momentum that complements each other. We will probably be pretty good friends. But if you're not creating friendships based on moral foundation, then again, like my little sister says, the principle. You will have conversations about the principle of individuals' actions and the things that they say. You'll be having that conversation a lot. So just keeping that in mind. Friendship. What a topic. And I would love to explore this topic with you, but thankfully, I don't have to do it by myself. On today's episode of More Peace, Please, I will be discussing the importance of finding peace in community with my friend, Yogi Tochi. Tochi Inayangu is a passionate yoga teacher and meditation guide currently living in New York City. She was raised in Lagos, Nigeria, and having called Lagos, London, Paris, and Atlanta, Georgia home at all different points, Tochi has settled into life in New York, where she is actively practicing yoga and meditation as integral parts of her daily life. Tochi is driven to teach because she has been able to overcome personal obstacles through her yoga practice and hopes to help others grow and flourish through yoga. Tochi's teaching journey started in 2019 and has now expanded into teaching both heated and non-heated classes. In her next chapter, Tochi looks to use her platform as a Nike trainer to expand on her offerings and audience by offering well-rounded experiences encompassing movement as well as other holistic healing modalities. If I'm being honest, me and Tochi, we vibe really, really well. This is one of my favorite episodes of More Peace, Please thus far. And I just think you're going to like it too. I just think you're going to like it too. So without further ado, enjoy this episode of More Peace, Please. Finding peace in community with Yogi Tochi. Tochi, I am so excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for coming on More Peace, Please.
It's my pleasure. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you and see where it goes. Like, even if we weren't recording this, I feel like this is a conversation I'd want to just have with you anyway. So I'm excited to dive in.
Oh, you know, you're my girl. I would love to have this conversation with you at any
My
time. Call me
girl.
at 2 o'clock in the morning. Let's talk. Okay. So, to start, I like to ask everyone who comes on to the podcast, how do you define peace?
For me, peace is almost synonymous with feeling grounded. And it's for me not having to worry in that moment. And so even in my journey of being trying to find grounding on a daily basis, I'm being forced to realize that it's not about like what actually I have going on around me. It's about me being able to reel it back in, notice that I have my basic immediate needs met,
Mm,
and releasing the worry from that. So
mm,
for me, in you asking this question, I'm sort of figuring it out. But for me, peace means feeling grounded. And for me, feeling grounded means feeling supported and feeling like I don't have something to worry about, even though if
mhm.
I actually went down that path, there might be like 1,000 things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's giving that for you, peace is an absence of fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Let's start off on the good foot, okay? So earlier today, I was thinking about the different signs like earth sign, air sign, water sign, all of that. And I was, I'm not too into zodiac signs, but I do think that they're so interesting. And I think that the parallels between the individual and the zodiac sign is always very interesting to observe. And when I think about myself as a Libra, they say, not they say, Libras are air signs. And I do identify as someone who is very my thoughts can take me on journeys. Let's just put it that way. And
Flighty,
yeah,
flighty.
Absolutely. And my husband himself, and I'm saying all of this, and I know that my Christian community is like, what are you talking about astrology? But it's, guys, it's interesting. It's just interesting to observe. My husband is an Aries, and my husband is the definition of grounded. He
Okay.
is the definition of rooted. He does not let his thoughts take him on any journeys. He's going to be right here and now, and he's only going to go where he chooses to go.
Mhm.
So when it comes to this idea of being grounded, my personality in particular has to work a little bit harder to not get swept up in all those thoughts that fear can create. And when it comes to peace, for me specifically, and feel free to tell me your experience, but for me specifically, peace is 200% the ability to recognize when I'm being metaphorically knocked off of my feet by the fear, and when I need to root back down into the present moment, because as you said earlier, I have everything I need.
Yeah. That sounds exactly like what like what it means to me. And when you phrased it as absence of fear,
Mm,
a part of me was like a little bit like taken aback, like, but then I realized, yeah, that is what it is. And the word fear holds so much weight for me because, it's just I'm a very hyper aware of the fact that the home I grew up in, my parents were very risk averse.
mm,
And, they really instilled that in us as children. And I think, sometimes as the oldest, you absorb certain things more than others. And so I lived a very risk-averse life, up until a certain point at least, and tried to do everything in the hopes that I would avoid anything that would disturb my peace. But in trying to avoid things, by living in that fear, I found myself more anxious, more
mhm,
stressed out, more worried, while my basic needs might have been met at the time, or I might have had abundance in certain ways at the time. I was not at peace
mhm,
because that fear was dictating my life and all the choices I was making. So it's like there's two different ways to look at fear, and it's like an aversion of it is not good either. But like leaning into it sometimes, and like sometimes now it's like I'll be afraid of something, and
mhm,
that'll be a sign that like I need to lean into it.
mhm.
So like absence of fear, yes, but not necessarily in the sense of avoiding things that scare me,
Oh, yeah.
more so in a sense of having a healthy relationship with fear being a component of my life that sometimes indicates, yeah, avoid that, but maybe, yeah, lean into that.
Mhm, mhm. Well, fear keeps us alive, right? Fear tells us, not to run towards the fire. Fear tells us that, hey, this setting is kind of dangerous. Maybe I should go. And it's not anxiety, it's your common sense.
Yeah.
So fear is very necessary, but also hearing you speak and talking about the ability to lean in, for anyone listening, when I reference fear, I hope that you guys understand that I am coming from a place of recognizing what's going on with your nervous system,
Yes.
because fear is, it keeps us alive, absolutely, but how wrapped up we get and how much we are reacting and giving in, because there's definitely a psychological reaction to fear, but there is a physical reaction to fear.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight, and all of the things that happen when we maintain those states, the things that happen to our personalities when we maintain those states. So all in all, knowing peace is having an awareness of our relationship with fear
Mhm.
and monitoring how much of it we're allowing into our experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As
Yeah.
always, you articulated exactly what I was trying to share perfectly.
Oh, I adore you. I adore you, girl. So I'm going to work really hard not to make this podcast just like a disgusting, I'm obsessed with you.
I'm holding back. I'm like, oh, I could go off.
I
Pull
can
up one of
sing,
my
I
testimonials.
could
I'm
just,
sure it's there.
I could sing your praises forever. Okay, so on this episode, we are going to specifically talk about community. I don't know if you guys could tell, but me and Tochi are friends. So we could talk about anything. We could talk about anything for however long. But today, we are going to talk about the importance of community. So the first question I want to ask you is, in what ways has building community helped you find more peace in your life?
When we first started talking about this subject matter for um, going forward for this conversation, I was initially like, it was almost like serendipitous because I had just been through a journey of experiencing loneliness, of questioning friendships in my life, of questioning what if I was someone that had a lot of friends and a
Mm.
lot of things. I eventually came to a conclusion, which I'm sure we'll discuss later on, but as we talked about it, I did come to the conclusion I do have friends. I do have an amazing support group. And I would say how my friends have brought peace into my life, my true friends, my sisters, the few people that I consider friends, is in the way that they see me and how they reflect the way they see me back to me in moments of instability, in moments when I've been unsure, insecure, moments when I felt unloved and unworthy. I've had conversations with friends that I'm sure to them was just a catching up, kiki, a little bit of gossip, just those light conversations. And somewhere along the way, they've said something that's poured into my cup that has
Mm.
assured me that everything's going to be okay. You don't have to worry. You have these people in your life. And more than even having them in my life, they see you as this person. They see you as an incredible friend. They see you as someone they can rely on. They see you as someone that's talented, someone that's gifted. And so, in sense, for peace for me, has always been about like instability and navigating instability and wanting to feel stable. And for me, I think finding strength in who I am and what I have to offer and feeling like that is enough, no matter what else is going on, gives me such a deep state of peace. And my friends do that by pouring into me.
Mm. Mm. When you speak about finding peace through community, it brings me back to that understanding of fear, because I think that a lot of people, when they can be characterized as bad people,
Mhm.
often the negative things that people do are because of fear.
Mm.
They're trying to protect themselves and they're trying to control circumstances so they don't have to experience whatever they want to experience. But everyone has the capacity to be the villain.
Yeah,
And I think that as Black women, we can both identify and understand with being characterized as the villain in different scenarios.
absolutely.
So when it comes to community, and like you said, I have goosebumps. When it comes to community, and like you said, you can see how they see you through how they treat you,
Yes.
through how they interact with you. And it is so important. Community is so important because if you don't have the right people around you, like I said, everyone has the ability to be the villain. And you can find yourself surrounded by people who choose to only see those
You.
aspects of of your personality. Or you can surround yourself with the people who choose to see the light in you. Now we're all gonna hold ourselves accountable.
Of course. Check.
Like don't
Yeah.
don't cause mayhem. Try your best, but understanding that the people that you keep around are often going to be a reflection of a part of your personality. So how those people make you feel is an understanding of who you're choosing to gravitate towards. Before we move any further, I do want to ask you, so why do you prioritize community?
Hmm. You know what? I don't know if it's something I prioritize.
Mm.
I think, which is interesting, it's just an interesting thing to say. It's not like it's not something that I don't aspire to prioritize.
Yeah.
I've just also sort of grown up with an understanding, and maybe it's something I need to work on of like, I don't really need I don't really need it. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay on my own. I have a little bit of that toxically. So I wouldn't say that I prioritize it, but I am blessed and lucky enough in whereby what I do, what I share my career as a yoga teacher means that I am organically creating community. And I'm lucky in that, maybe some of the things that people would see as a drawback, maybe being a Black woman, in a different kind of body, different kind of shape. Something that people might see as a drawback
Mm-hmm.
in that industry has actually been such a pull.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you come to my class and you resonate with me, A, you're going to come back. And B, if you come back, I'm going to remember you. I'm going to remember something about your practice. We're going to have a moment. And if that works, you're going to keep coming back and we're going to organically create that sense of community. So I don't think and even growing up, I was never someone that like actively, and I'm using community and friends interchangeably, and I'm not
Yeah,
sure
yeah, yeah.
things are interchangeable, but I've just organically been able to I really think it's a blessing and a gift, attract the right people to me. I've always had like associates and lots of people that I knew on like a surface level, but I've always been able to have at least one or two really close-knit friends
Yeah.
and then I also have my sisters, which are like built-in best friends. So it's like I've always just had really close, intimate relationships whereby I haven't really had to go looking for it. But there was a moment in time, maybe at the end of last year, when I was feeling very lonely. I was single. I'd been single for a while. Things were getting cold in New York. I had seen like other friends I had like hanging out without me. And, I just was talking to another friend of mine, and I was like, I have to admit, I feel really lonely. And I think in a city like New York, it's easy to feel lonely when you don't have, a person to do things with, like, and even one of my closest friends, she was traveling a lot. So the person I would normally hit up, like, hey, do you want to do this? And they're down, she wasn't around. And I really had to come to terms with feeling lonely. And I guess, you know what? I did prioritize community because I did set out and like write down and like journal through the feelings of being lonely and what I wanted and what I wanted my friendships to look like. So I guess in a roundabout way, I have been intentional about it actually.
I would look at you and say that even though you may not have intentionally prioritized it, the work you do on yourself makes you the type of person who attracts beautiful relationships. So for me, from the outside looking in, you may say, "Hey, I didn't prioritize it," but to me, I'm going to I'm going to go ahead and say, I think you're just privileged enough to be the personality type where you don't have to do too much to be surrounded by cool people. But I,
That's
I
a
do want to I want to roll back a little bit because something you said was so interesting. Using friends and community interchangeably. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to express what that truly means. So for me, I have about 4 women, 4 to 5 women who those are my girls. Anything happens, like the group chat is lit, right?
okay.
But my community, I'm teaching yoga again too. I am doing specific things that we talked about before the podcast, which I don't know if I've announced yet. So, but I'm doing a lot of different community initiatives that are allowing me to meet more and more people. And when you meet a lot of people, you tend to gravitate towards the people who have like interests, and then, oh, here's somebody who could potentially be a friend. So community is like a spectrum of friendship. You're going to have the people that like you know them, they know you, and then you're going to have the people who you are friendly with, but they don't have the same spot as the inner circle.
Okay.
But they're still a part of your community and you love them and you value them as such. So I do hope that that explanation does clear things up if any of the listeners are like, you are using that interchangeably.
No, that makes perfect sense. I always thought community is definitely bigger
Mhm.
than the sphere of what I would consider friend for sure.
Absolutely. What do you look for when you are vetting new members of your community?
Oh, that is a very good question. You know what? And I maybe this is coming from a negative place, but for me, there are just certain like more so like red flags.
Mm.
Because if I meet someone right off the bat, my initial instinct is always going to be warm, kind. There's opportunity for us to get to know more about each other and for this conversation to lead into us actually becoming friends. And then there's also opportunity for you to say something or behave in a way that puts me off just a little bit. So, with who I am and the workspaces that I'm in, and again, as a Black woman in a lot of these spaces, one thing, and it's interesting, and I wonder if you've dealt with this too as a yoga teacher, sometimes there are students that feel entitled to your time and your attention before and after class, right? And I will talk if someone has a question about a pose or shape, I extend that invitation to people like, hey, if anyone wants to chat about our practice today, I'll be hanging out, so don't be afraid to ask. But there are certain people that sort of use coming to the class as and this is me vetting, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
talking through one of my vetting processes, if you will. If someone feels too entitled after class, if you're just like yapping my ear off about okay, one of my main things, if I'm having a conversation with someone and they do not ask me one thing about myself, if there's no interest shown, if it's just you yapping about yourself, maybe, and sometimes it's people nervously trying to impress you,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like,
Absolutely.
oh, they've met this person, they think they're cool, and so they think the way to get to know you or to get into being your friend is by impressing you. But I just think that it's a sign of selfishness, and I really don't like that in someone. And the thing is, I'm also not a big sharer.
Mm.
So I'm not going to really interject or share anything about me, especially if I've just met you. But if I ask you, hey, what do you do for a living? And you're just yapping for, you know, minutes on minutes, and you haven't asked me anything about me, or you leave the conversation knowing nothing about me, I really think that's indicative of like someone that I probably wouldn't get along with.
Mm.
What are some other things? People that like lead with like gossip or like talking
Mm.
badly about other
Absolutely.
people.
Those are my big two. Yep.
Yeah, I don't really,
Yeah.
it's just off-putting right away. And the thing is, we're in New York. Oh, well, I'm in New York. You were in New York. I am in New York. And
Yeah.
it's a big city. And I've always lived in big cities for the most part. There is something where you can feel a transactional conversation.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that I meet that it's organic and I can tell they genuinely want to get to know me, and maybe they don't know much about me. But there are people that I meet that maybe know me because I do some art stuff with my sister. Maybe they know me from that context or from that Instagram, or maybe they know me from somewhere else, and it just seems as though it's a transaction of this
Mm-hmm.
conversation. They see me as this person that does this, and that's what they're interested in, as opposed to like me as an individual.
It feels like, or it sounds like that all of those things fall into this category of lacking self-awareness.
Yeah.
And that's a big one for me. That's a big one for me. I think that before I was dedicated to self work, before I had AJ, and I was just like out here living, not doing any work on myself, just causing mayhem, being a menace, being an emotional menace. I didn't have self awareness, so I didn't expect self awareness from others. And like, girl, the leading with gossip thing, that is like one of my I can't. Like, I'm so grateful for the term girl's girl because that's the perfect label for like what I look for when interacting with other women. Like, are you a girl's girl or are you still working on some things within yourself, you know?
Dom, I used to think this was like a Nigerian thing, but there are some people where if you pull up with the hottest tea, with the hottest gossip, they'll want to keep you around. It works.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
It
works
does
for
work.
some
It
people.
does
It's an
work.
in for some people. But now that I'm more self-aware, I'm able to like, really gauge that and know that it's not for me. But hey, so
Mhm.
for some people, that's their only way in.
And y'all, I'm not perfect. Like I said, the group chat is lit. Okay, I'm
We
not
have a key
perfect.
from time to
And
time.
from time to time, but definitely not the first time I speak with you. Like, come on, come on. You don't know my last name and you expect me to trust?
Yeah, it happened. I
My
met like
goodness.
a cousin of mine was dating a girl, and he lives in London, and I was visiting London for like a weekend, and I got to their apartment, and she just started asking me, "Do you know this person?" Rattling off the tea. "Do you know this person?" Rattling off the tea. I was like, "Yes, I do know them," and wow, I am shocked, but nice to meet you. Like, and how am I supposed to know that you're not going to go to the next person and do
I was
that
about to
about me?
say, in this day and age, like everyone's heard the saying, if they'll talk about them, they'll talk about you. Like everyone's heard that saying. So, maybe like let's not lead with the gossip. And in the same breath, like I love a good little spill session, but being too mean, I'm not about the mean girls. I'm not about just the complete lack of empathy. So when one, you're gossiping and I barely know you, and what you're saying is truly out of pocket, it's
And
like
you're
we're
reveling in it. You're
and
loving
you
it.
love it. And you're
Like,
looking at me like I'm boring.
I mean, I might be.
Okay, I think I'm going to have to hit the pause button right here. I hope that you are enjoying listening to this episode as much as I am. If you would like to hear the rest of this episode, make sure that you tune in same time, same place, next Tuesday for part 2 of More Peace, Please, Finding Peace in Community. I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of More Peace, Please. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Want to keep up with me? Well, that's a coincidence. I want to keep up with you too, boo. Best way to stay in the know is to follow me on Substack at Brown and Bindi. You can find me under the same handle on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat. Until next time, remember to seek more peace. Please.